Welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, the place where we turn down the chaos and linger on the moments that actually say something. Before we dive into today's quiet little revelation, tap subscribe, give this video a like, and if you want to push us even further, hit join and become part of our growing circle. Now, let's lean into the most unassuming, yet most irresistible, moment of the week. There are celebrity sightings that run on choreography. Strategic outfits, high-octane entrances, and camera-ready smiles. Then there are days like the one shared by Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu, where the electricity doesn't come from flashbulbs or headlines, but from the unmistakable comfort of two people moving through the city as though they only need one another to make the world make sense. What began as a simple drive across Istanbul turned into the week's standout scene. Not because it was polished, but because it didn't try to be anything more than what it was. They stepped out from a secluded home folded under thick trees and shadow, a place chosen not for spectacle, but for the promise that it asks nothing of them. There were no handlers pacing behind, no stylist straightening hems, no publicist whispering about angles. Yet the way they moved had its own grace, the kind that comes from being seasoned, from understanding that fame can be carried like a light coat rather than a costume. Elçin led with a pared-back charm, an easy jacket layered over a soft tee, clean white sneakers with just the first signs of wear, and accessories that barely announced themselves. Dark glasses framed her face, not as a headline, but as a preference. She dressed like someone who knows exactly who she is when no one's looking. Beside her, Barış matched her rhythm without mirroring her style. An open-collared shirt, denim that fit like it was made for today and not a magazine spread, and a watch that looked like a private choice instead of a public display, quiet, assured, purposeful. Nothing felt coordinated and yet everything belonged together. Clothing speaks even when it's not curated, and theirs spoke softly and fluently, like two fluent speakers of the same secret language. They slipped into their car. No roaring engine, no eye-catching decals, nothing that asked for an audience. It was less a showpiece and more a capsule designed for breathing room, a moving whisper where the city could smear across the windows while the two of them found unhurried space inside. Fame can be loud, this vehicle insisted on a murmur, you exist even when no one is watching. People close to them say this outing wasn't just a gap in their schedules, but a choice. A deliberate disappearing act from the constant feed of gigs, fittings, and regimented hours. Not a set visit. Not a campaign. Not content. A rare day carved out to be plain. And by being plain on purpose, it became luminous. Sometimes the brightest light arrives only after the performance stops. The drive unspooled through Istanbul in shards of sun rather than full-on glare. The Bosphorus flashed between buildings and tree lines like a secret winking invitation, and the reflection slid across the glass without ceremony. Inside the car, laughter drifted in quiet ripples, not broadcast for anyone, just their language, built on years of familiarity. A camera caught a sliver, only a suggestion, really, through the window, Elçin's laugh, unposed and unguarded, the kind you can't fake because it never expects to be captured. Next to her, Barış leaned in, saying something that belonged only to them. Even with the city at peak volume outside, the two of them seemed to occupy another temperature. Cooler, steady, hushed. Observers described a tone that is hard to pin down and yet instantly recognizable. This wasn't a couple performing togetherness, this was two people sharing a lane because it feels natural. And precisely because nothing was being sold, the moment became more valuable. Screens and reposts lit up not with scandal, but with recognition, like we were allowed to glance at something genuine and unedited for once. It wasn't a declaration. It was affection allowed to breathe without stage directions. Tell us in the comments, do you gravitate toward the couples who announce every heartbeat, or the ones who reveal everything in the quiet ways? And while you're weighing that, hit like so this story finds its way to more people here at Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Midway through their route, they eased into a side street and chose a cafe known less for hype than for corners where clocks seemed to forget their jobs. No requests for a back door. No special table set aside with a velvet rope of invisible privilege. They walked in like they always do, courteous without the gloss of performance. The greetings they exchanged with the staff didn't have the glitter of forced familiarity, they felt warm, simple, honest. No caravan. No fuss. Then came a moment that fans played back in loops. The breeze slid through the alley, a faint chill lifted the edge of Elçin's collar, and without fanfare, Barış reached out and set it right. It wasn't meant for a lens. It might have vanished unremembered if they weren't who they are. But caught in that sliver of time, it felt like a sentence whispered rather than shouted, care compressed into a tiny gesture. Those are the moves that tend to lodge themselves deeper than any scripted embrace. Inside, they gave themselves a short pause. Not elongated for attention, not trimmed out of fear of being seen. Just a measured break that fit the shape of the day. They didn't huddle like a couple defending a fortress, and they didn't hold themselves apart as if on display. They sat as part of the room. And because of who they are, the ordinary gathered its own shimmer. Later, timed by the logic of traffic rather than plans, the car rolled to a halt at a red light. The air around them shifted. Phones lifted. Tiny flashes fluttered like impatient fireflies. The edge between private and public pressed closer. Instead of stiffening, they chose grace. Elçin offered a small, easy smile, warm without surrendering the afternoon. Barış followed with a nod that felt like a friendly boundary line. We see you, we appreciate you, and we're keeping our day. Politeness without forfeiting peace. A practiced balance earned from years in the spotlight. The signal turned green, and quietly, they reclaimed their orbit. As the day began to fold back into itself, the car returned to the same street cloaked in leaves, the same calm they'd chosen at the start. The sun slid down, painting the neighborhood with that specific tone that asks conversations to linger. Before opening the doors, they simply stayed a bit longer, stretching the hush as if it were a soft blanket they didn't want to fold away yet. A finish placed with intention, a closing note barely louder than a breath. What made this afternoon glow wasn't high stakes or secret drama, it was the conviction that you can hold on to something private without announcing it, and that the world doesn't need to applaud for a moment to matter. Fans didn't only compliment how they looked. They responded to the rhythm between them, slow, deliberate, trusting. It read less like a statement and more like a promise they keep making to each other in small, consistent ways. A car ride can be a proclamation when it's honest. A cafe corner can be a refuge when kindness sets the tone. A collar adjusted at the right second can say more than 1,000 stylized photos. These aren't grand gestures. They hum. And if you listen carefully, that hum can shake the room. If this unfiltered look at Barış Arduç and Elçin Sanga spoke to you, tell us why. What makes a relationship feel authentic to you? Is there room for celebrities to share private instants, or is true intimacy the art of never letting the moment be consumed? We want to hear your thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe, click like, and if you love the way we tell these stories here on Turkish Spotlight Secrets, consider pressing join to help us keep doing it. Until we meet again, stay curious, stay attentive, and remember, the quiet tales often carry the strongest echo. The rest of the day, by all accounts, unfolded the same way, small choices that added up to a mood. They kept the car's music low, not so much a soundtrack as a cushion against the city's chatter. Conversations drifted to working hours, upcoming commitments, dog-eared notes tucked in script pages, the mundane pieces that act like glue. The kind of talk that never trends and nevertheless builds a life. More than once, they slowed just to let the view take a bow. The water stroking at the banks, pedestrians leaning into the afternoon, shop owners waving at regulars. It was less an escape than a gentler pace, a reminder that not every minute has to be accounted for in public. A passerby caught another fleeting image, Elçin brushing a stray hair behind her ear, the sort of simple movement that anchors a person in the moment. Barış's glance followed, soft, reflexive. It wasn't drama, it was recognition. And recognition, when it's mutual, is its own form of steadiness. At the cafe, they shared a pastry, the kind you split without ceremony. A coffee, a tea, a shared check. No notes sent to the kitchen, no send-offs engineered for online praise. When a fan approached, nervous but brave, they didn't turn the encounter into content. A gentle greeting, a few words, a small picture taken quickly and respectfully, and the afternoon resumed the tempo it already had. Later, as the car threaded through a narrower street, the city's soundtrack shifted from horn to footsteps. The red light moment replayed in miniature, a few more phones, curious eyes, that familiar hum of attention. The pair handled it with the same calm they'd chosen earlier. That is the skill you don't learn in acting class or from brand deals. It arrives from finding the boundary line that lets you live alongside the noise without letting it swallow you. When they finally reached home again, the final breaths of sunlight had turned the leaves to warm coins. They paused in the driveway, a silence that wasn't heavy but full. A look traded. A half laugh, the kind that promises the day has one more exhale left in it. Doors opened, shut with gentle clicks, and the street returned to the quiet it prefers. No curtain call, no bow. If you felt the tug of this day, it's because it didn't beg for attention and still drew us in. Because somewhere inside the hush, we all recognized something we want, to be seen by one person in a way that makes the world speak more softly. Maybe that's why an unguarded laugh through glass can move more people than an entire red carpet montage. Maybe that's why a hand at a collar can feel like a vow. So again, tell us. Do you think the truest romances thrive in the shared pauses more than in the public speeches? Would you rather watch a love that learns to be ordinary together, or a love that performs extraordinary at every turn? Share your take below, help this video travel with a like, and join us here at Turkish Spotlight Secrets if you want to keep this kind of storytelling alive. Because every now and then, a day writes itself in small script. A tree-lined exit, a quiet car, a laugh that isn't rehearsed, a cafe that doesn't pretend to be anything else, a red light that becomes a small stage, and a return home in time for the light to fade just right. In that soft handwriting, you can read the promise that some stories don't need to shout to be unforgettable.